In this video, we're going to be showing you some upgrades on how you can get your G8X car performing just like a GT4 car out on track. We're out at Alton Park today, testing with Century Motorsport, again with the GT4 BMW M4 car. We're going to be showing you a few of the upgrades you can make to turn your road car into more of a GT4 spec car. We're not going to be breaking the bank, so obviously you could throw all this money at it and get it to a full GT4 car, but what we're going to be looking at is a more cost-effective approach to changing some key components on your car to get it performing similar to a GT4 car out on track. The GT4 car has a two-way adjustable KW coilover kit as standard. This gives ride height adjustment, camber and caster adjustment, and also damping adjustment. However, these characteristics are achievable without going for a fully adjustable coilover kit. So that is one route, but a more cost-effective route to achieving these dynamics is you can fit a camber plate to the front. So that uses the OEM shock unit, but gives more camber and more caster into the system. You can also replace the solid front control arm bush into a caster bush. So this gives more caster down into the system again. So we're looking for these characteristics because the camber in the system allows you to roll onto the tyre and get more front axle grip and use the tyre effectively. The caster in the system gives more steering feedback, which these cars lack quite a lot of standard, especially on the road, and they give more feedback to the driver, as well as increasing dynamic camber gain. This is where, as you turn the steering wheel, the outside wheel will gain even more camber due to the caster, increasing front axle grip and using the tyre more effectively. So it gives a lot more grip at the front axle, so when you're pushing really hard on track, it reduces understeer substantially. Finally, to achieve the ride height changes, you can fit something as simple as a hasket, which is a height adjustable spring system. This retains the OEM damper unit, but it presses a threaded collar over it and installs a new spring grate, which can be height adjusted on some collars. So you can get the rake angle into the chassis to really help with the dynamic capability of getting the chassis rotating and really help dial out that inherent understeer. At the rear of the car, the main focus is on the suspension arms. So the first component to look at is your rear toe arm. So as standard, this arm comes with a rubber bush fitted to it, and the range of adjustment is very limited. So once we're approaching 2 degrees of camber, we struggle to get the toe setting back in, and then we start to lose traction at the rear end as a result of that. So what we can fit instead is an adjustable rear toe arm that is monoballed or rose jointed at both ends. This has a twofold approach. First, it gives us that adjustment back, so we can set our camber where we would like it, and then we can get the adjustment back in the toe to give stability and traction back to the rear end. Having the rose joints at each end instead of a rubber bush also means that as we're going through the corner, the bush cannot flex anymore because it's not there, and it means that the toe setting remains stable all the time throughout the corner. As standard, that rubber bush can flex as it gets loaded, and the toe setting can change and lead to instability at the rear axle the faster or slower you go. The next thing we look at is the rear upper camber arms. So again, as standard, the inners have rubber bushes and they can flex through the corner, giving a difference in camber setting as you go through the corner as the load is applied and then unloaded. By fitting rose jointed camber arms, we stop this and we keep the camber setting fixed at all times, and all of that force is directed immediately into the chassis and giving a much more responsive and direct approach to going through the corner. The other thing it gives us is it increases our range of adjustment for camber. So as we move on to a grippier tyre, particularly looking for track use, we need to start increasing that rear axle camber to use all of the tyre. Otherwise we'll be rolling off the outside edge, and mid-corner we're going to start getting snap oversteer. So we need to increase that static camber setting. With the standard adjuster, this wouldn't be achievable. It can't physically get up to the level that we need. So we need those rear upper camber arms to start pulling that top of the tyre in to get as much camber at the back to where we need it to be. The final arm at the rear is the traction arm. So as standard, this arm is not adjustable, and again it features a rubber bush which can move under load and under throttle. This gives varying levels of traction depending on how aggressively we're applying the throttle, and corner exit can lead to a bit of wheel judder and wheel hop. We can replace this, similar to the GT4 car, with a rose jointed arm that gives stability at each end. So again, it stops that bush moving and it gives traction back at the rear and gives much more stability, especially on corner exit throttle application. It also can be fine-tuned to a particular length longer than standard to change the kinematics of the rear axle. This means that as we're applying throttle and the rear goes under compression, we can change the arc angle of that arm by setting a different length, which rotates the upright very slightly under compression, digging the front edge of the tyre into the ground, giving much more mechanical traction, hence the name traction arm. So it's a really nice upgrade that can really help the car hook up on throttle and get rid of that corner exit oversteer that these cars can sometimes have. So with all those arms replaced, the final component in the rear axles to look at is the rear lower control arm bush. So in the subframe there's a rubber bush, and this can be replaced with a monobolt item, which again prevents that camber change from occurring through the corner. It stops that flex and it gives all the force direct input straight into the chassis. So when we replace all these components at the rear, just like on the GT4 car, we're looking at more stability, a more responsive chassis, and again we're getting that force from the tyre straight into the chassis so we can feel everything through the corner. We're not waiting for the delay in it moving through a rubber bush, and we're not getting any change in the geometry that we've set and meticulously designed to put into the chassis as we're going through different corners at different speeds. So it gives a lot more stability, a lot more feedback, and a lot more reliability to the driver, allowing you to push even harder on the tyre and get more aggressive settings so you can get the most out of your tyre package. With all those suspension upgrades applied, your car's now going to be handling similar to a GT4 car. There's one thing left, however, which is the weight of the race car is a lot less than the weight of the road car. This is achieved by adding lightweight panels, and obviously the interior is completely stripped out on the race car. One way you can achieve less weight in your road car is to start looking at optional panels such as carbon fibre bonnets and boot lids, which will help take mass out of the car. But beyond that, we're going to struggle to start losing weight whilst maintaining functionality and usability of the car. It's not really reasonable to start stripping the entire interior out of your road car because it's not going to be nice on the road anymore. So at that point, we can look at a different route, which is power. So as standard, although this is a lot lighter than a road car, it's actually detuned from the standard engine and is running less power than your road car. So one route we can take is to take a look at the power to weight ratio of the race car and look at getting your road car to achieve the same power to weight. So running some rough metrics, you can get the same power to weight ratio as the GT4 car on your stock road car by running 580 brake horsepower from your engine. This is achievable with a few hardware upgrades and a tune. So one route to get the same power to weight is to simply get your engine power up to 580 brake. This will match the power to weight ratio of the GT4 car. So I'm here now with Tom, who runs Tom Wrigley Performance, and there's no better guy to tell us more about tuning these BMWs and the power output we can get out of them. So earlier we were just discussing the power to weight ratio of this car versus the road car, and we figured out roughly to get the same power to weight in this with your road car, 580 brakes like the sweet spot. And obviously there's no better man to talk to you than you about tuning them. So how achievable is 580 brake out of the road car?
Extremely, really. I mean, a stage one, our full stage one does 620.
Oh, right.
So it would be a very mild stage one, really.
Right.
You wouldn't need to do any hardware changes. It would just be purely mapping.
Oh, right, so just a tune. Literally.
Yeah, I mean, this car also has the back box delete, isn't it? I know,
Yeah.
you know, so that lightens it off and probably just free up a little bit of power.
Okay.
But yeah, a gentle stage one would be more than enough.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it would. That would see more than the goals. I mean, if you wanted to push to 6, we could.
Yep.
But we definitely got that much to play with them, really, up to 620.
Nice, and the gearbox is fine with that, like everything's capable of handling.
We mapped the gearbox as well.
Okay.
So razor torque limits. Driving this today, actually, it feels very similar to our software.
Okay.
So that's encouraging.
Oh, nice.
I think because it's got maybe some more solid engine mounts or whatever, it does kind of make it a little bit more sharper, the shifts. But generally, it does feel pretty similar to our tune. So yeah, we'll do the gearbox map in that. So it's an engine and gearbox tuning package.
Yep.
The ECU will be unlocked. So yeah, we do as a full drive-in, drive-out package, really.
Okay. Awesome, so in that case then, with the suspension mods we've discussed and a few lightweight panels, then a stage one by Tom, you've basically got yourself a GT4 car to take onto the circuit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it will be awesome. And like I said, if you ever wanted a little bit more, a few customers have had a multi-map, so they have a few different maps. So you could have the full 620 maybe, and that would maybe be certain tracks. We might change the BOP on this, the balance of performance. I think we've talked about that before. So there is different maps on the car, and it might end up with more power at some of the other circuits we go to. That's going to be our power for Alton, but going forward it might change a little bit, and then obviously we could accommodate that with the customers as well, change the map and, you know.
Awesome, so you have like an Alton map, bit lower power, because it's bumpy, then a Spa map.
Yeah, exactly, loads more. Yeah. And,
Yeah,
you know, and it really stretches its legs then.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's good, mate.
Mega. So there we've covered the key fundamental changes to the suspension and the chassis, looking at all the suspension components and also looking at the power to weight ratio to achieve similar performance levels as the GT4 car. The final big difference between the GT4 car and your road car is the aerodynamics package. So on this car, the key features are a front splitter, front canards and a rear wing. All of these components work together to increase downforce of the overall chassis. This can also be achieved on your road car with various components on the market that you can add a rear wing to the back of the car. There are various splitter options for the front bumper, and also you can add the canards to your front bumper to help with that aerodynamic downforce. With those installed, your car is going to be similar to a GT4 car out on track and will have much better track performance than the road car comes as standard. We've covered quite a lot of upgrades in this video, so if you do want a bit more detail on the upgrades that we've mentioned, there is an article on our website that'll be linked in the description, and you can head over there and you can read about all the different upgrades we've mentioned and what the individual components add to the whole setup of the car. We need to get this car back out on track now, as the testing's about to reopen after this lunch break, so head over to the article, have a little read, and we'll see you next time.